Ghost Lights, written by Juan Martinez, January 23rd, 2019. I grew up in a small town in the Midwest, and now whenever I say it's a small town, I mean other people from my state have never even heard of it. With that being said, for such a small town, it does have a pretty dark history. In 1927, my hometown was a small village with a population of just over 300 people. The largest employer in the area, the Macmillan Textile Factory, had been built in 1922. The location was ideal because of the available land and the town's close proximity to the state capital. By 1927, the factory had employed 314 people from the surrounding area. May 25th, 1927 started early, just like every other day, and the workers looked forward to the start of a productive summer. But unexpectedly at 8:45 a.m., the north wing of the building exploded. Shortly after the explosion, a man named Alex, a disgruntled employee, arrived on the scene. He loaded down his pickup truck with dynamite and scrap pieces of metal from his farm. Eyewitnesses say he stepped out of the truck holding a rifle. When the floor manager approached him, he fired into the bed of the truck, which caused the dynamite to detonate. The explosion of the truck killed Alex and the manager and a few other bystanders. The fire department found another 500 pounds of unexploded dynamite rigged up in the basement of the building and discovered that Alex had killed his wife and burned down his home. Investigators also discovered a sign on his property that read, "Criminals are made and not born." In the following weeks of the investigation, witnesses came forward claiming that Alex had been complaining about recent tax spikes in order to pay for a new area school or something that he always would complain about, they stated. It was further discovered that his farm was in foreclosure. Investigators speculate that the combination of him losing his job and the tax increase may have been the catalyst for the bombing. When all was said and done, 44 people lost their lives that day. The news covered the bombing heavily, and in the weekend following the attack, some 50,000 people drove through the town just to try and catch a peek of the carnage. Unfortunately, the story rapidly fell to the wayside due to Charlie Lindbergh's transatlantic flight that took place 2 days later. As quickly as it happened, the tragedy and its victims were forgotten. But they didn't want to be forgotten. They wanted us all to remember that. In 2008, I learned not to forget. It was the summer before my senior year. I had been staying at my friend Mike's house for the better part of a week, and one night, after what felt like our millionth match of Halo, I was finally video gamed out. I took off my headset, set the controller down, and looked at Mike. He was furiously rubbing his eyes, which, if they felt anything like mine, felt like they were on fire. "Do you want to go outside for a little bit, man?" I asked. "Dude, I thought you'd never ask," Mike replied with a grin. "It's like 2 a.m. though. Where are we gonna go?" "I don't really care, just as long as I don't have to look at this TV anymore right now." We decided to take a walk through town. Neither of us really planned on doing anything nefarious, but we agreed that we needed some fresh air. As we walked down the dirt road that Mike lived on, we talked about girls, cars, the rapidly approaching football season, all of the things that you would expect two high school seniors to talk about. We walked past the high school, and the town's only gas station, and then down Main Street. And as we walked in front of our small town's only bar, a few girls that graduated our freshman year stumbled out into the street. Mike and I tried our hardest to talk a big game and impress these girls, but just as you'd imagine, neither of them could carry any less about what we had to say. And us being sure that we'd ruin our only chances for entertainment for the night, we decided to head back to the house. But our return had us walking past the old Macmillan factory, and then eventually it put us in front of the town's cemetery. As we walked in front of the old factory grounds that had since been converted into a small park, Mike spoke. "Why do you think he did it, man?" I turned to look at Mike. "Why, who did what?" "Alex, man. Why do you think he blew up the factory?" Mike asked again. "Man, you know the story just as much as I do. He was pissed about losing his job and his farm. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Not a lot of questions to be asked." "Dude, no way. There has to be more to it than that. People lose their jobs every day, and if I had to guess, it was like a demonic possession, or maybe he was just insane." Mike said. I didn't really believe that demons had a hand in the disaster, but I felt a chill run down my back anyway, and I looked ahead and saw that we were quickly approaching the town's small cemetery. And I felt that chill intensify. Most of the victims had been buried in that cemetery before their families had packed up and left town. And with the way that our conversation had turned, I wanted to be as far away from it as possible. "Let's cut to the cemetery," Mike said. "It'll cut the walk in half if we go through it." I turned to look at Mike quickly. "Are you insane? I'm not walking through a graveyard at 3 in the morning. That's when Mike said it, the one sentence that would convince a 17-year-old boy to do it. Pretty much to do anything. To be such a pussy, dude. I groaned, shook my head. Damn it. Fuck. Okay, whatever, let's do it. Mike grinned at me before taking a large, exaggerated step off the main road into the cemetery. I quickly followed suit and soon we found ourselves deep in the cemetery. The cemetery itself is laid out like a giant sideways H, and as such it's nearly impossible to get lost in, or so I thought. As we walked up again, I noticed that the area was completely devoid of sound, save for our feet scraping the concrete. But it's strange though. Our ears should have been insulted. Fucking what's that? We were completely engulfed in silence. And I turned right to look at the main road we had entered from. It looked impossibly far away, much further than it should have. And I turned back to look at Mike. "Hey man, shouldn't we have hit a turn by now?" I asked Mike. "Dude, I thought so, but maybe it's just the dark throwing us off. If we keep going, we'll either hit the turn or hit the wood line, so it doesn't really matter." Mike answered. We walked for another few minutes when I thought I saw a light moving ahead of us. I strained my eyes in the dark trying to figure out what I was seeing. "Hey, do you see that light up there?" I asked in a hushed whisper. Mike stopped and looked ahead. "I think so. It kind of looks like a flashlight." "Yeah, that's what I said. Is it someone really out there in the woods? What do you think?" "I mean, it's probably just a ghost light," Mike said with a shrug. "Just stay on the path and we'll be fine, dude." "What the a ghost light, dude? What are you talking about?" I asked. I stopped and waited Mike for face me. "What the fuck is a ghost light, Mike?" Mike stopped and turned and faced me. And now he was standing in between me and the wood line. And I could only make out that light if I leaned to the left or to the right. Dude, there's different versions of the story, but the one that I've heard the most is that a light shows up as a way to lead you off the trail of the pathway in a cemetery. Once you've stepped off the trail, you're in their domain, Mike said, gesturing beside the tombstones on either side of us. Sometimes these lights lead you to bodies, sometimes they lead you to treasure, and other times they just lead you straight to your death. I shivered and swallowed hard. I leaned a little to the right and saw that the light looked a little closer, or at least a little bit bigger. I looked back at Mike and said, "Dude, let's get the hell out of here. Looks like the light is getting closer." Mike, not really believing the situation, he turned and looked, but as soon as he seen the size of the light change and it was moving, he gasped, I gasped, we both gasped, and then we realized that not only was the light closer than we originally saw it, but it was moving straight towards us and picking up speed. I tried to run, but I felt like I was cemented to the ground, like I couldn't move, like I was in a dream, and I couldn't make my action happen. The light moved in a straight line straight to us. It didn't move, it didn't bounce. It's like someone was carrying a flashlight and running at us. It was just a straight shot. Mike grabbed my arm and snapped me out of my trance as he ran by. "Dude, fucking run!" I turned and started to run as soon as I realized that I had stepped off the path, and I was now sprinting parallel to the road between the tombstones. I looked to my left and saw that Mike was running in the same direction, but a few rows of tombstones over from me. "Mike, run to the road!" I screamed out. Mike acknowledged me, but I changed directions mid-stride, but then he suddenly dropped. "Mike!" I yelled as I changed directions towards my friend. As I approached where he'd gone, I saw him holding the right side of his face and frantically scrambling to his feet. "Dude, just leave me and go," he panted. "No way, man, come on," I yelled as a bright light began falling all around us. I threw his arm over my shoulder, half ran, half carried him a few more yards until my foot caught the corner of a low headstone. Mike grunted loudly as we crashed into the damp grass. I frantically rolled over and covered my face. The light had become so blindingly bright that I could no longer keep my eyes open. I felt my body tense up as the light washed all over us, and then I felt nothing. I had yet to open my eyes, but I could feel my feet planted firmly on the ground. I slowly opened my eyes and looked around. What the fuck was that?" Mike asked. I began scanning around until I realized that we were at the beginning of the cemetery again. and I looked over at Mike, whose face was no longer bleeding, before looking down at my watch, and it read 5:30 a.m. Somehow, 2.5 hours had just magically passed from the time we originally entered the cemetery. I don't know, man. I think we got chased by a ghost. I mean, I didn't make that up, right? Mike shook his head. Dude, no, it definitely just happened. What the? I stopped and followed Mike's gaze, and that's when I noticed it. A man in denim coveralls standing next to the closest tombstone. The man had almost a disgusted look on his face. What felt like an eternity passed as we stared at one another. The man finally spoke. Why have you forgotten us? Why has everyone forgotten us? Behind the man, I saw silhouettes materializing and moving closer to us. Please, tell our story. Don't let them forget. The man said as he began to fade from view. One by one, the silhouettes behind him faded as well. And before long, Mike and I were standing there left alone. Mike, clearly being braver out of me and him both, walked back to the cemetery and looked down at the tombstone the man had been standing next to. Robert Ames, born September 9th, 1897, died May 25th, 1927. Mike read slowly before looking up at me. Even in the dark, I could see that the color had drained from his face, and he quickly rejoined me on the road. Neither one of us spoke of that incident for months. Both of us avoided the cemetery like the plague. That is until Community Day. A week before homecoming, the football team adopted the cemetery for Community Day, where we were expected to go as a team and clean up headstones and pick up trash. There was no real way to get out of it, so me and Mike both begrudgingly went. The day went surprisingly smoothly, and I had nearly forgotten about the ghost lights and apparitions until I moved near where Mr. Ames was buried. I didn't see anything or anyone, but I swear I heard a voice whispering, "Remember us." It's been almost a decade since we saw the ghost lights, but everywhere I go I make sure to tell the story of the Macmillan Textile Factory. Tragedy that should never be forgotten, and neither should the innocent people that lost their lives that day.